here to see the world premiere of Sometimes I Think About Dying. A short film from 2019 that premiered here at Sundance. We love the film as well. That short was so good that it attracted an impressive team of new collaborators to create this feature-length version. It attached the incredible director Rachel Lambert and an incredible crew and lovable cast, all wonderfully led by actress-producer Daisy Ridley. And it gives me great pleasure right now to welcome to Sundance for the very first time, director Rachel Lambert.
Thank you all for coming. It's so wonderful to see everyone here. I want to thank Sundance for having us. We're so honored to be here at the United Festival. It's a real treat, and I hope you enjoy the film. Thank you so much. Hi, I'd like to invite up the cast. Okay, I see Dave coming, Dave Marhead, Briella. I see Dave.
Well, congratulations, everyone, on a wonderful film. Before I open up to the audience for questions, start to get your questions, everyone. First, let's start with Rachel. I'd love to hear just about kind of discovering this script, the story, and what were the thing or things that you kind of immediately connected with that kind of brought you to making the film?
Okay. Well, I didn't discover it. A very dear friend of mine, Corey Finley, and a dear friend of Alex Sachs, sent it to her because he knew these wonderful writers who created this beautiful script. And I was sitting on my porch at my parents' house in November 2020. You can all remember that time. And she sent it to me. And I trust Alex with my life. And so I read it very quickly. And I was struck that the film was touching things that I was feeling at the time, but that I think I feel all the time, which is the desire to connect and struggling to figure out how to do that. Feeling so tied up in my own, the tyranny of my mind, in terms of convincing myself that there's absolutely no place in this world for me, everyone else is so successful at being a person, why am I failing at this, how do I do it? And this film captured that in this way that was not only authentic, but rendered a way forward that also felt equally as authentic. That didn't feel patronizing or saccharine, that felt earned, because it was sort of celebrating the minutiae of being a person, of being alive, the things we touch, the people we see, the things we eat, the things that we stand and wait to brew. And it sort of bathed in that. And Fran found her salvation, I think, ultimately in merging that place in her head and the world around her. So that's really what drew me to it.
Awesome. And then a question for Daisy, similar to that, I kind of want to hear about you kind of first discovering Fran on the page, but then, and then also, what was the kind of evolution of that character as you started to work on it by yourself, with Rachel, with the cast, and the rest of the crew? How did that character evolve?
Well, I was sent the script by my amazing agent Hilda Queeley and loved it, and I had loved Rachel's previous film, so I was very excited by the whole prospect. In terms of Fran, a lot of it came from the voiceover, which was not used in the film. There was like a ton of voiceover for everything, so as I was working through with my dialect coach, Rick, who's amazing, that was sort of the basis for everything. So even though we didn't show it, I was playing all of that. But I'm not going to be answering this up, so I'm really nervous. And then, I don't know, it just felt very, like it was a wonderful set. Like it really was. It felt Like, I was like, oh my god, this is like working in an office. This is what it feels like. And it was like hard not to be drawn into it. Of course, she's separate from that, but it felt strangely simple. Like, I don't know, like Rachel was so intentional with everything. And the first time I watched the film, I was like, this is such an intentional film. Like, everything means really something. And just together we got there. Yeah.
Awesome. The question is for Daisy about drawing from a well, emotion connecting with the character, and if Daisy wants to answer, in a relationship like this in her life.
I think that we all know what it is to feel, like Rachel said. Like, sometimes I feel like a piece of fucking shit. And sometimes I feel like great. Like, I feel like, wow, this is great. And what was interesting with Fran is, like, sometimes she's sort of obnoxious. Like, sometimes she's like, I don't want to play your games. I don't want to talk about food. Like, I'm good. I'm apart from this. And then other times she's like, how do I become part of this? So I resonated with that. And in terms of the relationship, I think, I don't know, because when my mom watched this, she felt very sorry for Fran. I don't think I've ever felt so separate, but I think I'm very lucky to be surrounded by people who help me fit in, make me feel comfortable in this world. So, after that.
So the question was about connecting with the character, the idea of the character, at times feeling like they do want to die, how the Rachel connects with that theme, and if the cast connects with that theme in this sort of way.
Well, I won't put any of the cast on the spot. But sure, of course. I think I quote myself. I think I put it well. You have to write these director statements, right? You're like, okay, why did I do this? And it's very hard sometimes because you have to go back and go, okay, through all this process of thinking through this thing and finding yourself in this thing and then finding the space where all these other artists can find themselves in this thing, you get so far into that process and you go, okay, yeah, what is that first spark? What was that before it became everyone's movie? And for me personally, it was the sense of, okay, yes, I can think about dying or not existing or whatever kind of state of being that is that you're contemplating, but I mean, really what you're doing is you're really worrying about being alive, I think. And how do I live well, and how do I live right, and how do I live in a way where I feel good, I feel joy, I don't feel lost or confused or alone. And that's, I think, really what's going on. And I think, like, for Fran, one of the sequences that really meant a lot to me, which I also find incredibly funny, is when she's at home cooking for the first time with her Evelyn. And because she cooks. Different things. So she's not cooking and she's just having one of these idle moments where we're alive, but we're not necessarily being productive, and we're there in time, and she's thinking, she's looking at her window, and it becomes trees, and it becomes nature, and she's dead there in nature, and it's almost meditative and seductive and calming and soothing because she's sort of able to escape this moment of emptiness and sort of feeling, I don't know what to do right now. And so, yes, death can sometimes be one of those figures, but I don't necessarily think it's a cause. I think it's very much an urgent desire to be a person in the world.
The question was about lighting, kind of evolution of lighting over the story.
I think you should talk about interpretation of the lighting, that's great. I think that's really, I love your read of it. I think that's super interesting, and I see that. Certainly, I think that the story is her sort of, she begins from one point of view on her world. It might be dark and limited, constrained, or muted. And for instance, I love the example of the final scene when she's bringing the donuts, and I think it might speak to what you're talking about. There is this sense that the quality of sunlight does even feel like it has a little bit more brilliance, right? So you feel her own point of view of like, okay, maybe at the beginning of the film, she's someone who, she's sitting there and time's happening and people talking about a cable, which happens all the time. Because like, I'm like, where did that HDMI thing go? What is an HDMI? Where am I? And all these things happen. And she's having this confrontation, which is like being a person. And it starts in that muted way, but by the end of it, she's sort of in this moment of celebrating, like, yeah, okay, let's just like get crazy about donuts for 2 hours. And so, yeah, I do think there's a relationship between the quality of the light and its relationship to her quality of seeing the world around her, maybe bigger vision.
The question was about what are the complicated things that it took to bring this story to light. Could be any of the cast.
Yeah, does anyone want to talk about challenge for like
Sure.
Yeah.
First of all, I think the challenge we can't ignore is the pandemic. We filmed during the pandemic, and I don't know about like the rest of the cast, but I feel like when we've been lucky, so many of us who have been able to work in the past few years, coming to work was my social outlet, was my joy, was my connection. So to be like, it felt like theater camp. And so many of us do come from like the theater kids everywhere, you know, and so like to get to play is very viewpointy to me. And so the challenge was just like getting there. Honestly, like logistic, COVID, everything. But once we were there, it just was time to play. And from producers, directors, crew, Daisy, to every background artist. There was love, there was joy. And I know that kind of feels like that film festival BS. Oh my God, we're BFFs, you know, but like, it is absolutely true. A lot of us, we also text and Instagram, but that was the challenge during this time. I mean, we're still in it. I mean, like, I'm so grateful, thank you for all coming and being here in the festival, coming to see our film. But we don't know. You know, it'll still be years from now, we'll be like, remember the pandemic? And what will come from this? So I hope that like our challenge, just getting there, will help like everyone who sees this film be like a reminder that we do need connection and people. I practiced that.
Are you curious about how we came to that sound?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The question's about the soundscape.
Yeah. Well, again, so, yeah, it's had a sort of circuitous route. It began with me listening to a lot of Hawaiian ballads while I was location scouting. And I called Dad and he was like, listening to a lot of Hawaiian ballads. And he was like, okay, I can work with that, let's, okay. But it did, it sort of sparked some things, and we were listening to a lot of Penny Mancini, and things like really old vinyls that came from that era of composition and had that kind of, I think because I was near the sea, I was near water, I was near something that, and this feels like a bit of a fable, so like feature animals, and human beings are kind of animals. And so he was pulling from that, and there was a big sort of grand conception thing with the team in prep of like, okay, I think that we want to make this in a really classical way, classic Hollywood kind of way. Camera doesn't move very much, it's very traditional, but that its insides, its contents is very contemporary in its concerns. So we went back to sort of older romantic scores, you know, Breakfast at Tiffany's, those old Mancini pieces, and it sort of became informed by that location inspiration and this conceptual idea of how the structure of the piece would work. And that's where we kind of ended up, and these are all brainchilds of Devin.
The question is to the cast about Friends breakdown, and how we see that, but then how they maybe processed how their characters understood that and took that with their characters further in the film. The one, three.
Dave.
I should have worn this jacket. It's too hot. Just sweating up here the whole time. When she broke down at her house, is that what it is? Like how I would handle it? I guess the talk to them more, even if they're going through stuff that, you know, if you feel, sometimes you feel your friend is going through something and you don't maybe want to involve yourself, and you just kind of let them go. And I feel like we don't sometimes have empathy, and we just let them, and we don't ask questions. I've had that happen where you know something's wrong and you just let them go through it. And I think it's the quicker you can talk to them and help them get out of it.
Brittany wants to say.
Sure.
Final thoughts.
Final thought. This is my first time seeing film, so it was absolutely incredible to see how everything came together from all different departments and how this story has hopefully impacted the audience. I think one really cool thing I could say that ties all the questions together and the process of the film was seeing everything through Fran's perspective. I think also can reflect throughout the themes of the film is how we all want to connect, and I think that impacted the ensemble and how we operated in the office, and Rachel did such an incredible job of creating that space for us in an authentic way, which you could see in the film. That's so honest and grounded and amazing, and I'm blown away and so proud to be a part of this, and it's the process of making this was as excellent as the final product. So that's what I wanted to say. Truly, it was in Harv is absolutely right. We had such an incredible experience, and I felt nostalgic looking at all the spots because that's all the energy that we put, and so that's one little thing I hate.
Hey, this is Eric from MyOnCinema.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.